Hello and welcome to my channel Bite Size Law. I'm Amanda and I'm a private tutor in property law. In this video I'm going to introduce you to some of the basic principles of land law. I taught many different subjects when I was working as a full-time senior lecturer, and teaching land law and my other property subject, equity and trust, were always my absolute favourites. So what I want to do today is to show you how land law fits together and give you a basic overview and roadmap so that you can see where your studies are going. Now, as you will discover, land law is very technical and most students find it challenging. And I think that if you are aware of the reasons for this from the start, you will hopefully not feel so overwhelmed when you first start to study it. So here are some of the reasons why I think students find land law so challenging. First of all, it's very abstract and theoretical, and very few students have had any practical experience of dealing with issues of land law. Secondly, the terminology is usually extremely unfamiliar. There are so many different things that you can do with land. For example, you can have different people having different types of ownership in the same plot of land. So if you have a tenancy, which is essentially another word for a lease, of your student house, your landlord is an owner, and you also have a form of ownership in that you have a lease. So you both share the ownership of the same piece of land. So ownership can be split. You can also give other people rights in your land, known as interests. And that's why land law can seem very complicated when you first start to study it. Here we go. An owner of land has what is called full enjoyment of the land. In other words, they can occupy it. So if it's a house, they can live in it. Or you can use a building on the land as an office, or you can farm it, and you can receive a rent from it, so you can enjoy the income from the land. Ownership of land is like any other form of property. You can give it away, sell it, leave it in your will. So ownership of land will change over time. And the way that the law deals with ownership of land is by the concept known as an estate. An estate describes how long the owner of the estate has to enjoy the land. Now, just a word of warning, you will come across the word estate in other contexts too, as it has more than one meaning. So, for example, when somebody dies, all the property that they own is referred to as their estate. But for our purposes here, an estate refers to the ownership of land for a particular period of time. But as the owner of land, you can also give other people rights in your land, known as interests. They aren't the same as ownership, they're more restrictive. So they're rights which a non-owner can have over the land. So a private right of way is an example of an interest. If your neighbour has a right of way over your land, you wouldn't describe your neighbour as sharing ownership of the land with you. They can't occupy the land, they can't lease it out and receive an income from it, but they do have a right of way which they can enforce against you as the owner. So an owner of an estate has full enjoyment of the land. That's somebody who can occupy the land and has the right to receive any income from the land. A person with an interest doesn't have full ownership. A person with an interest doesn't have full enjoyment. His enjoyment is much more limited, but he can enforce his right against the landowner. So different people can have different ownership rights and other interests in the same plot of land all at the same time. So here's an example to help you understand. And it's a situation you might be familiar with if you have a lease or tenancy of your student accommodation. So Woody owns what is known as the freehold estate of Yellow Door, which he bought from Rex in 2010. Now remember that an estate tells us how long a person is entitled to enjoy the land, and a freehold estate lasts indefinitely, so the owner can enjoy it for their lifetime and pass it on to somebody else in their will. So a freehold estate doesn't come to an end. Ownership may change, as it did when Rex sold it to Woody, but the estate itself goes on forever. The technical term for this is a fee simple. It just continues on forever. Now Woody can split his ownership so he can carve out another estate from his own estate. So he can grant a lease, which he does. He grants a 12-year lease to Buzz. So there are two owners of Yellow Door at the same time. The freehold estate has been split up. The two owners both enjoy the land because Woody receives the profit from the land, he receives the rent, and Buzz has the right to physical possession of the land, so he can occupy it for the next 12 years, which is how long his estate lasts. And they can both transfer or sell their estate, unless there's something in the lease which says that you can't. But in the case of long leases, tenants can usually sell their lease. So next time you pass through a city or commercial area, just look at the for sale signs on properties and see if you can see one which states leasehold for sale. This means that the current tenant wants to leave the premises and sell their lease to somebody else. So here we have the two current owners of Yellow Door. We've got Woody, who owns the fee simple, and we've got Buzz, who owns a leasehold estate. Now let's beef things up a bit. What we've seen is that ownership of land is an estate, and that is the period of time over which you can enjoy the land, so you can occupy it or receive the income from it. And that period of time doesn't have to give you the immediate right to enjoy the land. It can be at some point in the future. Now, if this is your first introduction to land law, don't get too hung up on this at this stage. You will study it in more detail later, and you'll also probably come across it when you study equity and trusts. But for now, let's just look at an example so that you get a basic idea of how ownership can be successive. So here's a clause in Trevor's will. I leave my holiday cottage, Seaview, to my widow Wendy for life, and thereafter to my children Jack and Jill. So Wendy can enjoy Seaview for the rest of her life. That's how long her estate lasts, and she has the immediate right to enjoyment. So she can live in Seaview, or if it's rented out, she will receive the rent for the rest of her lifetime. So Wendy has a life estate which she will own until she dies. And Jack and Jill have what is known as a freehold in remainder. And this is an estate which doesn't give you the present right to enjoy the land. So Jack and Jill can't live there or claim rent during Wendy's lifetime, but here's the important point, they are still owners of an estate in the land. It's just that their right to occupy and enjoy Seaview is postponed until Wendy dies, and we call that an estate in remainder. So we say that Wendy has an estate in possession, which is the right to immediate enjoyment. But remember, and here's the tricky part, Jack and Jill also own an estate in Seaview. It's just that their enjoyment doesn't start when Trevor dies. It starts after the life estate has ended, so they're said to have an estate in remainder. Now, when Wendy dies, her life estate comes to an end, and Jack and Jill's estate falls into possession. So they now own the land in possession. They will now have the right to occupy it or receive an income from it. And if we just go back to the Woody and Buzz example, if you remember, Woody granted a 12-year lease to Buzz, so Buzz has the right to occupy the property. So he's said to be in possession of the property, and Woody's interest is often referred to as the freehold reversion, which simply means that when Buzz's lease comes to an end, Woody has the right to the full freehold again. But in the meantime, it's called a freehold reversion. Now, don't panic if your head is starting to ache at this point. It will become clearer as you become more familiar with the idea of estates generally. I just want to show you why landlord can be so interesting. There are so many different things that you can do with land ownership and different things affecting the land. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope that you found it helpful. I'd be really grateful if you would consider subscribing to my channel or like and share this video, because it really does make a difference.